You can tell us where you're joining us from. It's always fun to see where everybody's located. We got a big bunch today. So, all right, Petra, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming or logging on, I guess, right?
Exactly, logging on all over. Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a couple quick notes, guys, and then we'll get started. So first and foremost, we are working from a pre-recorded video for tonight's presentation. What that means for all of you is we're going to play it here in the software and the platform, but I'll also share those YouTube links in the chat box. So if our platform is giving you any headaches, if you're getting any weird buffering or having any sound issues, feel free to click on those links, hop over, watch it on YouTube, and then come back and rejoin us for the live Q&A at the end. The live Q&A is in this format, so if you can see and hear us now, you should be able to see and hear us then. Second, as Cassie just asked, yes, we will have a recording available later. If you guys want to watch the recording after the fact or go back through things, we're going to put that up on the FGSA blog after it's all over. And if you signed up, we will email you a link to that blog post once it's posted. So you guys will have that to refer back to and or to share with all of your friends if you would like. You can feel free to ask questions at any point. The software will track them for you and it'll save them for us for the end. So feel free to get them in as you're watching things. It is super helpful if there's like a specific video that Petra shared or something and you have a question about the video. If you can include some of those notes on what you were watching in your question, just makes it easier for us to know when that question came in. And my last little note is occasionally we do have folks that struggle with a little bit of sound issues. Unfortunately, once we start the presentation, there's nothing we can do about the recording sound. Petra did make it nice and loud, so it is pretty clear on the recording. But if you are having issues on your device, I encourage you to grab a set of headphones. Usually that just gives you a little bit of a boost, and it just helps if things are a little quiet on your device. All right, anything else you can think they need to know, Petra?
Nope. I am very loud, so yeah. All right, guys. You might want to turn the volume down.
Nah, they'll be good. All right. Then if you want, you can turn off your mic and camera. We'll see you back for Q&A.
Okay. See you in a little.
All right. And I am going to go ahead and queue up our first video here, guys. Just make sure I got the first one. I did. Okay, here we go.
Hey everybody, my name is Petra Ford, and today I am happy to present to you the webinar entitled In the House, Training in Small Spaces. First though, I want to say a quick thank you to Denise Fenzi for supporting this free webinar, and of course to Melissa, because without her, this would never happen. So what are some of the benefits of training in the house or in small spaces? Well, you can wear your pajamas or yoga pants. You don't have to wear makeup. Your socks don't have to match. You can train there in a power outage as long as you have some candles. And it's the perfect place to do it when the weather outside is terrible. But from the dog's perspective, they really like it because the tasks are simplified, right? Everything's kind of close and everything is broken into pieces, and they really like that. They have a high success ratio, and nothing is more reinforcing or confidence building than being right. There are an endless number of things you can work on, limited only by your creativity. I'm going to show you some, but there are tons more. You can involve other dogs or family members if you have them. So what you don't want to do is drill. All right, this is not what this is about. You don't want to nitpick. You don't want to be like a perfectionist where you're saying to the dog, no, move a little left, a little right. Instead, you want to change your mindset. This should be really fun for the dog. So think of it as you're just teaching a series of fun tricks that both of you enjoy. It's going to be all about your attitude, because if your attitude is light and fun and relaxed, then your dog's going to feel the same, right? I tell people all the time, why are tricks more fun? Why do dogs love showing us things like twist, spin, play dead? Because of us, because we laugh when they do it. If it's not perfect, we don't care. We have fun. If they make mistakes when we're teaching it, it's not a big deal. We should have that same attitude when teaching our dogs our competition behaviors. You can do a number of things without even the dog. right? So this is a great time to work on heeling footwork. People don't practice that enough. They'll send me videos and say, oh, I know my footwork's a mess. Well, this practice, 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 right? I've spent endless hours in my house practicing my footwork, practicing my handling, making sure my body is presenting a clean and clear and consistent picture to my dog all the time. People are generally don't have innate good body awareness. So take a look in mirrors, take a look in, I have these nice sliding doors. They act as mirrors for me. You should also sort out your cues and pre-cues. If I say to you, what is your cue for the moving stand? You should be able to tell me instantly. If you're like, I'm not sure, that means you're not consistently doing the same thing every time. How is your marking? The vast majority of people that I work with think their marking is great, and it is not. They're very inconsistent. They use words interchangeably. They'll use a word and sometimes feed it when they give it and sometimes not. It's also a great time to work on your training journal. If you don't have one, you should. It's a good time to list your dog's strengths and to prioritize weaknesses. What is it that you need to work on, and how are you going to work on it? And it's a good time to assess, are you making progress? If you've been working on something for a couple of weeks and you're not making any progress, you need to change something. You want to look at the dog's skills. You want to look at the dog's attitude with all the exercises or pieces of the exercises. How is the dog with distractions, with pressure, with engagement? Those are all things you want to look at so you know what you should be working on. You also need to decide if your training is balanced or not. So if we work primarily on, for example, distraction work week in and week out, your dog's going to get really flat. If you're always doing a full exercise, the pieces in the middle are going to get flat. The criteria is going to start to slip. If you're always working on motivation and the pieces, well, at some point you need to teach your dogs to put the pieces together so they learn that their reinforcer comes a little bit later. You need to work on chaining. There are many, many, many things you need to work on. So I keep track of everything to make sure my training is balanced and to make sure that I'm not going too far in one direction or the other. It's an outstanding time to work on mental management. I cannot overemphasize the importance of mental management. People really don't understand the importance of it, and not just that you can't just read a book or watch a webinar on it. You need to literally practice it, right? Like a skill. I work a little bit on mental management every single day because it benefits not just my training, but life in general. Education. We have so many resources now online. We have YouTube videos, we have webinars, we have workshops, we have classes online. And think outside the box. You don't always have to watch or read something about your sport. You can learn things from other dog sports, from other trainers. There's a wealth of information out there. Podcasts. I've listened to podcasts, for example, on agility, and got a great idea on how to do a better job of handling errors so that my dog has a better experience with it. I learned all about back chaining from Freestyle. So there's tons of information out there. You should take advantage of it. A brief note here, something that it's great to work on in your house is silence. Humans talk a lot. They love to talk. Dogs don't talk. So yes, we should praise after we mark. But if we're talking a lot when we're training, right, whether just in your training session in general, if there is a lot of talking going on and then you go in the ring, it's going to be a huge difference for your dog. Right? Practicing silence is really good because for multiple reasons. One reason is that dogs actually pay more attention, right? They prefer visual information, so they prefer physical cues because that's their natural language. And if we're not talking and they need to watch for that, they're going to watch us very intently. So when people think they're helping their dog by talking a lot, they're actually not. And again, if you're talking all the time, certain words lose their value, right? Because it all just blends in together. I don't talk very much when I train, so when I do say a word, it's meaningful to my dog, and my dog pays attention and listens to it. So basically, when I train in silence, I give my dog a cue, I mark, and then I typically even praise in silence. Now, a lot of students really struggle with that. They feel like they need to do excessive body motion, or they're like, I don't know what to do. You don't really have to try that hard. So you act the exact same way you would if you were going to praise your dog verbally. So for example, my dog does something, I go, yes, wow, what a good dog. I smile, I raise my hands up. So I do the exact same thing. I just don't say the words out loud. I say them in my head. And believe me, the dogs totally get it. All right. So this is a really good opportunity to work on that. In my house, I work on ring entrances. Ring entrances are super challenging for the dogs, yet they're critically important because they set the tone for your entire run. Your dog has to move through an enormous amount of pressure, so a lot of times there are people around the ring entrance, so they have to go through that, past the steward's table, through the gates, through that opening, towards a judge, and into a novel space. So they haven't been in that ring that day, and I'm sure it sounds and smells and looks a little bit different. So I make this a fun game for my dogs. Most people rarely train ring entrances, or they don't train them at all. I practice them literally every single time I train. Yes, literally every single time. Even in my yard, at class, even when I don't have any ring gates set up, right? So in your house, you can use furniture, you can use bags. If you want to bring gates in, you can. You don't really need to. You can use other dogs if you have them. Even if it looks nothing like a real ring entrance, you're still building value for the process, and you're creating a positive conditioned emotional response. So here's an example of me doing a ring entrance with nothing, right? So if I'm training in my yard, I don't have any rings set up. This is exactly what I would do. I just pretend.
In the ring. Bounce, bounce, sit. Yeah.
So that was my pretend leash that I took off. I didn't even have a leash on. Then I mark yes, and I back away.
Bounce. In the ring.
I have my dogs bouncing. They like it. They think it's fun. And it helps them override the pressure of the ring entrance.
Bounce. Sit. Yes. Oh boy.
So I always
yes.
mark, and then I release and feed. So here, the goal as I'm approaching the chairs, which are my ring entrance, is to mark and release, meaning step back before my dog looks at the chairs. So I keep doing that, and then the closer I get, the more my dog's going to anticipate the release and drive into me and have a positive feeling about this fun game versus trying to push the dog through the ring gate no matter what, right? I want the chairs to cue something fun and positive.
Oh, you right, buddy? In the ring. Bounce. Yes. Okay, over here. Close. In the ring. Bounce. Bounce. Yes. Bounce. Bounce. Yes. Good boy. Good boy. Don't in the ring. Bounce. Yes. Dana, stay.
This is my judge.
Yes. In the ring. Bounce. Yes.
Right, so I used Zaina as my judge. I could have sat her on a platform or something. She's like, I'm sitting here. This is kind of silly. Why am I doing this? But she did it. All right. When the dog is sitting still, so for example, you go in the ring, your dog sits, the judge gives you instructions.
Hey guys, with the buffering, I am going to see if I can restart it about where it was. Hang on 1 second. It's going to take me just a second to get to the right spot again. We may hear a little bit of that twice, but I think it's good enough information and advice. Hopefully that'll be cool.
Hey everybody, my is a really good behavior to have for dogs that tend to get too aroused, right? It's incompatible with vocalization or excess motion because they have to sit and they just have to stare at you. But in the dog's mind, it's a trick. So it's still fun for them, and they're kind of offering that behavior, which takes their mind off the environment and gives you all of their engagement. Transitions, I consider those an exercise. They should be taught and maintained as an exercise. They should have a pre-cue and they should be standardized, meaning you don't have to do the transition the way I do it. There are endless ways you can transition. You can do tricks, you can do a finger follow, you can heel, you can do any number of things. You have to choose what works best for you and your dog, but you need to create something, teach it to your dog, and do it the same way every time. Because again, dogs like consistency, right? That it's good information. You don't want to go in the ring and try to get from point A to point B with something you've never really formalized or taught. Because all that's going to do is cause the dog to be confused and worried, and the dog's going to struggle, right? Knowing what's coming is very reassuring. Also, I want my dog to give me enormous effort in training because we always get a little bit less in the ring. So if you're training to get just exactly what you want and you get less in the ring, you're not going to be happy, right? So I always train for gross exaggeration. This way, when they're in the ring and they're under pressure, I still have enough that my dog can give me the work that I want. You can talk on your transitions. I tend to, if I say anything, I whisper. You don't want to babble. You don't want to just be incessantly talking because to a dog then it's meaningless. It's just white noise. And then that's actually distracting. So they hear you talking. They're like, I don't know what she's saying. I want my dog clear-headed. So if I'm doing a transition, I'll either say good, or I'll remind the dog to look at me, or maybe if I need the dog to calm down, I'll give him a calming cue, but that's it. I don't say more than I need to. So you can practice transitions by doing a finish, exercise finished.
Let's go. Yeah.
So he's choosing to bounce. That's extra credit for him. But I like that and I want that. So I move to the next setup spot. I always plant my left leg. My dog sits next to it. I steady my dog up and I bring my legs together. I do it the same way every time. So when I'm practicing my little transitions here, I just move in different directions, turn different ways, just so that no matter what I encounter in the ring, when I go to transition to it, my dog knows what to do.
Yes.
And once I set my dog up, I mark and release because that's the end of the transition. That's the exercise.
Nice. Let's go. Sit.
So he likes when I move lateral, so sometimes I'll do that.
Front. Good pose. Nice. Wow, good job, buddy. Let's go.
So that's exactly how I'm going to praise him in the ring. That's what I'm going to tell him for the transition. I always say, let's go. I turn in to the left. That's the physical cue. And then we move. So he knows what that means and he knows what to do then. And he knows what's coming. Sometimes what a judge will do is one exercise ends at a certain spot and then they start the next exercise right there. Okay? Or sometimes you set up and the judge is like, oh, just move back a little bit or just move over a tiny little bit or something like that. Or sometimes you set your dog up and there's a little bit of a delay, right? Or maybe you're setting up and you or your dog just need like a little mental reset. You're kind of like, oh, just lose it for a second. You don't ever want to just stay there sitting in one spot. Again, no motion, sitting still, always deflating, always super challenging for dogs. Dogs tend to get disconnected. They tend to look away. It's just very hard. So I train a reset as a fun trick, and the dog finds it reinforcing. So even if I set my dog up and my dog seems a little flat, I could just do a quick little reset and it'll bring their energy back up. So exercise finished.
Get back. Now sit.
So that's all we're doing is we're moving back and forward again.
Okay.
But if this isn't trained and you go to do that in a ring, oh my goodness, the dogs get super, super stressy and flat and concerned. So I always make sure I train this and that the dogs think it's a fun trick.
Touch, touch. Good. Nice. Good boy. Let's go. Let's go. Close, close, close. Ready. Nice, John. Good boy. Ready? Let's go. Yes.
So I didn't love how he did the one before. I felt like he got a little too loose, so I'm just breaking it down into smaller pieces. So I'm just going to do the one step back, mark and feed, and help him out. I haven't done probably enough of these with him.
Sit. Ready? Let's go. Yes.
All right, so I'm just breaking it into little pieces. I'm going to reinforce it a lot. And all of these things need maintenance. You may teach them, and the dog knows them. And then if you don't practice them for a month or two or for a few weeks, you go back and do it, it's a little rusty. And that's totally understandable. That's why when I'm in these situations where I'm training in my house or in a small space, I brush up on all these little pieces. Competition obedience requires a lot of detail work, especially when you're in the B classes, fronts, finishes, pivots, proper heeling. It's very detail oriented. So what I like about doing it in the house is you don't have a lot of space. So you're not tempted to do things at large scale. You can isolate the pieces. You can reinforce them heavily. Just laugh and have a good time with it. Don't be too serious. That sets the tone. The dog learns to love it. And then it's fun for them. So you can see with my dogs, when I do multiple fronts, they actually find it highly reinforcing. So I'm just calming him down a little bit, pulling his collar up because he chokes on it with his giraffe neck. So I'm helping him be right. And I'm doing multiples before I reinforce, which actually builds drive. He's correct every time because I'm helping him, right? So with subtle cues, like with my finger, helping him is going to make him confident. Instead of me saying that's not right and constantly fussing and adjusting it, he's just correct. And then I'm actually taking the opportunity to feed off my body. So I'm practicing a little remote reinforcement there. Plus I don't have pockets because I'm wearing my yoga pants. Because it was a snowy day. He's adding all those extra bounces because he's happy and having a good time. But the key here is instead of nitpicking him, I'm helping him be right. So you see I used my finger to help him move lateral so he's correct. He can actually do it without that help, but I'm giving him the help just to be 100% sure he's correct, so I can build his confidence and just keep telling him, you're right, you're right, you're right. You hear me laughing. I'm laughing because he's putting so much effort into it. He's being really cute. Mixing in some tricks, which again, to my dogs, this is just a trick, but I just kind of like to blend it in just to give him a little mental break. And you can see he's happy and having a really good time. So I do angles, I do laterals, I just do all kinds of different fronts and mix it up. So basically he's getting to practice a bunch of detail reps, but in a super fun way.
All right, folks, hang tight. We're just switching video links. We'll be back up and running here in just a second. Here we go.
Dogs have to do fronts with pressure, usually from the judge. I don't have a judge. I'm going to use the wall. So I want him pushing into the wall to hit front, which he's doing, but I'm also helping him to make sure he can be right. So I'm using my right hand and my left hand, signals that I've taught him from a baby, so he knows what it means. Okay, so this way he's right, and I can tell him how brilliant he is.
Wait. Front. Yeah. Good boy. Sit.
And I'm not saying front, like front, come on. I'm like front, right? So I'm just encouraging him. I'm helping him.
Front. Yes, good boy.
All right, so that just gets him to push all the way through. You could, I could put a chair here and have him push against the chair. I could use one of my other dogs. Again, you can play around with that. So finishes, I'm holding my signal to keep it fun and make sure he gets all the way back and in. So the key here is I'm working to make him right so that he's having a good time and he's confident. So there I'm like winding him up a little bit, ready, set, so that he really drives around. I have my hand up here so that he has something to drive to on the around finish, because that's why dogs get lost back there. There's no sense of urgency for them to get around. By doing the hand touch, my dogs hurry around. So there I make, and so this way he comes in and he does something fun at the end. So again, obviously in the ring, my hand's not there. I don't hold it for that long. But doing that makes that finish super fun for him.
No, twist. Front. Ready, set, close. Come on.
So you can see he's really driving around because he has somewhere to go. He wants to get back here. He wants those touches. They're fun, and that gives him a reason to push around. So here I'm going to play a little game. So if your dog's not getting in enough, I do the finish and I pivot left. That gets them to really move their butt in. So I'm teasing him, making sure he's really motivated. Then he's coming in that tight space. I'm doing a left pivot. My dogs love left pivots, which is a way to remind him, as you get here, make sure to move your butt all the way in. And then after a few of those, you can see that in spite of being in tight quarters and all this pressure, he gets his butt all the way in. So here, this pivot, I'm just breaking it down into tiny pieces because I want him to really drive, in this case, out of the sit into the pivot. So I'm just doing the very first piece and marking it. Again, I'm saying ready, steady. And then I'm going there, and then I'm feeding in position. So I'm just getting him to drive into that first piece. So there I went a little bit further, but still not all the way around. The game here, which my dogs understand, is to stay in line with my left leg. That's their job.
Let's go. Yeah.
So I'm just doing pieces of the pivot, and then I put the piece together. So I'm just doing like not even full pivots there. And then at the end of the pivot, I've added in some bounces. Again, in the ring, they pivot, then they're just sitting there. They tend to get flat. And I also want him to have a reason to drive around. And my dogs love bouncing, so he's gonna pivot and then throw. I like to have them throw in some bounces. In the ring, there's not enough time for them to bounce because the judge says send your dog or whatever. And again, remote reinforcement mixed in. A lot of times people don't break things down. So if the dog is forging or lagging, they keep doing the whole pivot, trying to fix it that way. It's a lot easier fixing it if you just do one step or a quarter of the way into the turn, then a halfway into the turn, then 3/4 of the way into the turn.
Let's go. Yes. Good boy.
And I'm just reinforcing that piece. When we train, we tend to do the whole pivot every time. So these are great opportunities to just work on pieces. And he's offering a whole lot, which is what I want in training. Another thing you can do is take anything your dog is having trouble with. So either it's something they don't understand, in the chain it's not meeting criteria, could be that they're doing it correctly, but it's not as fast or as energetic as you want, or the dog lacks confidence with it. Any of those things, you just pull that piece of the exercise out of the chain and isolate it. Then you break that into even smaller pieces and you build on success. So hold is an example. Dogs that have hold issues, which my dog has had, there's some lack of understanding, and then the more we say to them to hold it, or the more they struggle with it, the worse it gets. So what I have done, and I've had a lot of students do this with success, is if the dog's been taught how to hold, but somewhere along the line it's gone awry, we just have the dog offer it. What I'm going to do here is give her my cue, which means offer whatever behavior you want. And then at some point when she's offering a bunch of tricks, I'm going to show her the dumbbell. Or if your dog doesn't know how to offer, you could just ask your dog for some tricks. And then just hold the dumbbell out, look at the dumbbell, and just calmly wait for them to take the initiative to take it.
Cute. What else? Wow. What? Ooh, fancy. What else? Ooh, that's fancy. What else can you do? Nice. What else? Oh, that's cute. Yes. Good.
Okay, so she offered to take it and hold it. If she had mouthed it, no big deal. I would have just taken it out, done it again. Pretty quickly they figure out what we want, and it happens very quickly. And now she loves taking the dumbbell and holding it. She does it. I'm not telling her to take it. I'm not shoving it in her face. It's just in my hand. Anytime she sees it in my hand now, she grabs it and like shoves her face towards me holding the dumbbell like there. See, I'm doing it.
Oh. Yes, go. Yeah.
That's also how I taught her to front with the dumbbell, because when you combine hold with front, even if they must know the individual pieces, but even then when you combine it, a lot of times they start moving their head and mouthing. So I just did the same thing. I didn't say front to her. I didn't say hold to her. I just moved. So if she got stuck there, I would say okay, which is a release word. She figured it out on her own. If she fronted and moved the dumbbell, I just wouldn't say a word, take it out of her mouth, do it again, or throw some tricks in there and then do it again, and she figured it out. So now she happily fronts. See, I'm not telling her to front. She's doing that on her own. So in her mind, it's her idea. And whenever they feel like
All right, folks, give me just a sec. We'll do what we did on the first half and see if we can't fix it. I just need to grab the link again. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so we were at 1746. And I'm just going to replay the last 10 or 15 seconds or so, just so that we don't miss anything. All right, let's try this again.
They for a heel position. So then I can build on that and put drive into turns.
Yes.
So there I moved away. I told him get close. As soon as he got there, I started pivoting left.
Sit.
Right?
Wait.
Yeah, left.
Close. Close.
It helped put drive into him moving his butt in.
Wait. Sit. Wait. Close. Go, 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 go. Yeah.
I can use it to build drive for the right turn and the about turn.
Sit. Wait. Close. Yeah.
So there I did a right turn towards the wall, which we have to do a lot in runoffs.
Sit.
Halts into the wall, so I built some drive.
Close. Go, 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 go. Yeah.
So there I did it into the about turn. So you can use it for anything you want. You could do get close and then go into a slow if you want to build drive there, or get close and go into a fast. So you can use it however your dog needs it. I also teach my dogs that it's their job to stay in line with my left leg. So that's how I initially teach it. I go one leg at a time, and when the right leg is forward, they have to stay on my left leg. So I play this game with them all the time because it's a fun way to remind them about position without nagging them or harassing them, right? They just think it's a fun game. If they mess up, I just treat it like it's not a big deal. Remind them they're supposed to stay in position. And doing it slow makes it really clear for them. I also do this as part of my warm-up, but they love it because I do this pretty routinely as a fun little game. And it's great because if I'm training and my dog forges, I just stop. I do this game a little bit, and they're like, oh, yeah, I remember how to do that. So then instead of having to be like, you're wrong, no, get back, you're out of position, I can do this, and they feel really good about it. This is also a great opportunity to work on turns and halts, the inside and outside of figure 8. Again, I break it down. We can work on accuracy without it deflating or boring the dog. We're going to help them be right. So there, he was out of position, and I was just like, whoop, you were out of position, and he's like, oh yeah, no big deal, and we fixed it. So, and, you know, I don't make a big deal about errors when I'm doing this. So there he pushed too far. I just reminded him to stay in position, and he's like, oh yeah, okay, I can do that, good boy.
Yeah.
So you see, I'm just slowing the turns down. I'm stopping in the turn. I can stop anywhere in the turn to help explain to my dog that you need to be in position the entire time.
Yeah.
See, I'm doing it super slow to make sure that throughout the entire turn, he's in position.
Close to me. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. Close. Yes. Yeah.
So that's the initial cue for my left turn. I want my dog to respond immediately, which he does. He overdoes it. I've taught him to do that. So that's me breaking down the inside of the figure 8. And he almost takes me out.
Close. Close.
This is Zaina.
Yes.
So I reminded her where to be again so she could be right. She's a very, very, very advanced dog, but it doesn't matter.
Close. Right here. You're gonna be right here close. Good.
So she made a mistake, and I laughed about it, right? Because if I keep that light attitude, she's not gonna get upset about it. And I don't want her to be upset. I just want her to feel good, and I just needed to remind her.
Yes. Wow! Touch. That was fancy. Get close. Fancy. Wow.
So there, instead of giving her a cookie, I did some tricks, praised her right back into healing. So there I'm delaying the reinforcer.
Yay! Go girl! Twist. Touch. Oh, nice. What else? Oh, wow. Down. You're stuck. All right, come on. That was good. All right, let's do one more. Ready? Close. Good. Close. Good girl. Close. Yes. Good.
So I'm doing everything I can to help her be right. You see there, I did a whole bunch without giving her a reinforcer. So that's working on reducing reinforcement. So I'm doing a whole bunch of different things here at the same time. So I can just do the inside and the outside of the figure 8. So to create drive around the outside, I'm asking him to bounce on each step. So this way I get lots and lots of drive. Then I went right to the inside. At that very end of towards the end of the inside curve, he wasn't moving his butt quite as much as I want. So I just asked for more to emphasize I wanted him to do that all the way around. All the way around, he has to push in. So that's grossly exaggerated, but he thinks it's fun. And when I'm doing it at scale, see how much drive I'm getting? And at normal speed, I get more than enough motion. And then when I go in the ring and you get even less, I still have enough. So again, I'm just breaking it into little pieces.
Wow, stand back. Super, buddy, get in. Nice.
So again, there I use tricks as the reinforcer instead of an actual cookie. So you can mix that in as well. Halts, I just do a bunch of halts. So multiples in a row. So not healing far, just short halts. This is a good way to practice your footwork with the dog to reinforce your halt cue.
Oh,
that was a little slow.
Right?
So I didn't even tell him that was wrong. I just did it again. And I think it's a fun game. When you're leaving the dog, this is a great place to practice that because it's a shorter distance. It's a lot easier to teach the concept. It's also a great refresher. I do it all the time for my advanced dogs. When we leave the dog, a lot of times dogs know what they should not do, but they don't know exactly what to do. So I teach my dogs to watch my left hand. This is also a really good place to work on your mechanics. When people do this, they mess it up a lot because they're not presenting ring picture. Like they're moving weird, they're holding their left hand weird. And make sure to mark first, then reach for the reinforcer and randomize when you release the dog. So that's one thing I'm going to show you. Another thing is when I'm leaving the dog, I ask the dog for behavior. So I can either turn around and say to my dog, back up, or do a trick, or I can ask my dog to offer if my dog knows that, which keeps them actively engaged. No, they don't offer in the ring because my dogs only offer if I give them the offering cue. If I don't give the offering cue, they don't offer.
Wait. Yes. Touch.
So I walked away like normal. I said yes. Then I opened my hand. He touches my hand and he gets a cookie from that same hand. Or I could when I'm teaching it, I'll have a cookie in that left hand.
Come on. Recall. Wait. Yes, touch.
Yes, I open the hand, he touches it, I feed from that hand. So then he learns that what he should be doing is watching my left hand. And that gives him something concrete to do. And a lot of, so you have to vary where you reinforce. Sometimes close, sometimes far. Here I said, what?
Yes.
And he offers behavior.
Wait. What? Yes. Go boy. Recall. Ready. Wait. What? Yes. Spin. Wait. Wait. Good. Good. Stand back. Wait.
So I also do it in the stand. So I do the releasing to my hand thing, or I do the offering thing in a stand and then a sit. And I also do it in the down for when I leave them on a down and command discrimination. So you can play around with that as well. Facing the dog. When we turn around and look at the dog, if they are mentally engaged, they are going to respond to our cue. But if they are not, they either don't change position, which is freeze, or it doesn't meet criteria, which means they're fleeing. There's forward motion, right? So again, I will turn, look at my dog, and just mark. If you do that a bunch of times, they actually are engaged when you turn around. You can turn and ask for a behavior or ask for them to offer.
Watch.
So that's my signals pre-cue. So if I turn and he's engaged, he is going to down. So I don't need to down him. I just need him to be really engaged when I turn. Yeah. So there, I stood up tall, and that's his cue to offer behavior. And then I reinforce him for offering. Because if he can offer, he's focused. Sometimes I just turn and tell him yes.
Yeah.
So I like to do this in the house with a shorter distance, and after a few sessions of that, I'll add a little more distance outside, and I get really nice carryover. So I want him to offer as I'm turning, and then when I'm fully turned. And then you see that his position change is beautiful. So as I've already showed you a little bit, this is a perfect opportunity to work without food or toy on you, because you don't have to run really far to get it. That's why people keep food on them a lot, because they don't want to have to go all the way over wherever it is. Just put it in different spots in the room. You could also put it outside the room. You're teaching the dog that the reinforcer's available even though it's not on you. It's great preparation for the ring, but it's also a great distraction tool. So here I'm just asking him for a bunch of tricks, and then at some point I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to come over here and give him his treat. So we're going to go over here, so it's not on me. He knows he can get it there. Then, so same thing, I can heel a little bit, then say yes, go and get the cookie. Here I have to put the lid on because he is, after all, a lab, and he's thinking about eating all the food. So then I'm going to work with it. If a dog's never done this, I might start with it on the floor over here or over here, but eventually it's in the middle of the floor. So now it's also serving as a distraction, and he has to do signals, I guess. So there I'm making the same thing. I want him to offer, and then I can go over there and feed. So you can play around with that as well. Okay, so that's a lot of things I showed you, which does not mean that's all. I have worked on many other things. That's just to give you a bunch of ideas. It's up to you to be creative and pull out of there what works for your dog. What does your dog need to do? But most importantly, remember, be lighthearted about it, keep it fun, break it into pieces, high success rate. Again, thank you to Denise for giving us all this wonderful platform. Huge thanks again to Melissa for hosting. Thank you to all of you. I greatly appreciate all of you. That's why I wanted to do this free webinar. And I commend all of you for striving to have better relationships with your dogs. Thanks. Happy training.
All right, we're going to switch over for Q&A. If you have questions that you have not submitted, go ahead and get those in. And Petra, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them up, and then I'm going to turn off my mic and camera and let you do your thing. Sound good?
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, so here's our first one.
How do you achieve the balance without overexciting the dog? So if I have a dog that it's going to make them super high, I won't necessarily do the bounce. If I just want to teach it to them in a calmer state, I'll reward every single one. And I keep the bounces low. So as soon as the dog starts to bounce, I go, yes, click, or yes, cookie, or click cookie. And I only ask for one or maybe at most two, right? So even with my dogs, whether it's in the ring or in training, if I ask for multiples, my dog's going to get higher and higher. So there's no need for that. I only need to let them bounce enough until they get into an optimal state. Now, my dogs like offering bounce at this point, and sometimes they go a little overboard with it. I let them in training, that's fine. But if I had a dog that I taught it to bounce and it was making it like way too crazy, I would just pick a different behavior. Does each separate exercise have a different pre-cue? Yes, it does. Every exercise has its own unique physical and verbal pre-cue. What prevents a pre-cue from becoming the cue to anticipate? Okay, so because I always say the whole sequence, so my dogs learn that. So let's say I'm going to do a moving stand. My pre-cue is moving. And then I say, this is a stand for exam exercise. Are you ready? Ready, forward, and then heel, stand your dog. With command discrimination, I'm trying to think which one. Oh, well, like stand, stay, get your leash. My pre-cue is stand, stay. So theoretically, he could stand on the stand, but he understands that I'm not going to ask him to stand until after the whole sequence and I say both parts. So I'll say, this is a stand, stay, get your leash exercise. Are you ready? Ready, stand your dog and go get your leash. Stand back, and then he stands on stand back, and he doesn't stand on the pre-cue. Do you say ready for every exercise? Yes, I say ready for every exercise. Which doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. Do you give a verbal cue for stillness? I need to give a verbal cue for stillness to my dogs, yes, because my dogs have been taught on silence to offer behaviors. So if I say nothing, my dogs are going to start bouncing or waving or doing any number of things. So I do give them a verbal cue, like I was doing it with Zesty today. And a couple times he started to bounce, and I just said, sit. And I touch his head, and then he's like, oh, okay, we're doing this thing. And then he just sits quietly and gives me his staring trick. Do you need to be doing the exercise after the pre-cue to associate it with a specific exercise? Yes. So, and I start introducing the pre-cues when they're very young, when they're not even doing the whole exercise. But I pair the pre-cue with the exercise every time. And then at a fairly young age, like I look down and I'll say to my dog, we're doing signals, for example, and 300% I can tell even from the way my dog heels that they're already anticipating the fact that we're going to be doing signals, and that's what I want. So yes, I pair it. how do you begin to introduce the stillness? So you just have to click really quickly. So I tell my dog to sit, because that kind of stabilizes them, right? If you're sitting, you can't be bouncing or waving. And then if they're looking at me for just a second or two, yes, click. And then I just incrementally increase duration until they can, hold that behavior for a length of time. I don't know if I've ever really counted the seconds, but he can hold it a pretty long time because I use that as his tricks for articles. So once the judge takes my article, for however long it takes for the judge to get down there, place my article and say, send your dog, that entire time he's doing this staring at me trick. So that's a decent chunk of time. Do you want little dogs to look at your face for the stillness cue? I think it depends on how little, right? If the dog's teeny tiny, and they really kind of can't see your face, then they might have to stare like at your hand or your fingers. If the dog is big enough that it has good eye contact with you, and that's a trained thing, your dog is used to having eye contact, then yes, they can do it. But if not, or if it pulls them out of position, I would have them stare at my hand if my hand was the focal point. Do you do the same thing with less driven dogs? Yes, 300%. So Zaina is a less driven dog. She has her own opinions, her own ideas, her own motivations. um, so with less driven dogs, things like a lot, sorry, basically all these activities, you see how they made Zesty super bouncy, or even Zaina made them super bouncy. They create drive, they create animation, and they create the dog wanting to give you more. So I would 300% do them with less driven dogs. If a dog drops their head on the reset, how do you handle it? So if it's in training, I would just release them and do it again and help them keep their head up, and only reinforce when their head is up. So I just create kind of the habit of their head always staying up. Once the dog knows the exercise, if my dog were to drop their head, then then it would be an error. I would treat it like an error. With Zaina, I just wouldn't reinforce, and I would do it again. With Zesty, he prefers that I tell him what not to do. So I would say no, then I'd say up here, and then I would redo it. If my dog drops their head on a reset in the ring, they typically don't, because it's trained to be such a strong behavior. But if they would, I would just freeze the second they drop their head and not move, get their engagement back on me using my engagement cue or my focal point cue, and then continue on. What will you do different with little dogs? Because I'm going to just destroy my back and neck with my medium small dogs. That is why I do not have a medium small dog, because I would break my back. So no, I would, what would you do different? It's kind of a vague question. If you're talking, so in general training, I mean, you could do some of the training, I guess, with them on a table, or I do a lot of it with them touching my hand, or like some behaviors that I do with big dogs, I might not do with a little dog. I might pick different behaviors, like maybe having my dog push their head into my leg, or staring at my hand versus staring at my face. That's the challenge of having little dogs, is that unfortunately you do need to bend a lot. I don't think there's a way around that. How long are your training sessions? way shorter than most people think they are. I don't typically train a dog for more than half an hour, and usually that's less. So when I train with my training partner, he does an hour, I do an hour, which means each dog gets half an hour. If I train in my yard, it's about the same, but a lot of times it's probably less. If I go to a store or something and it's really challenging for the dog, I've been known to do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes. I think it's really dog dependent, but my philosophy is quality over quantity, right? At a certain point, my dog's just fried and I'm not really getting anything out of it anymore. How do you make touches fun and with drive? So, basically, when they're young, they get a cookie for every touch, right? And then once that's established, they need to give me 2 hand touches before they get the cookie. And they have to be solid hand touches, not like barely touching me, like solid hand touches. So 2 hand touches, then they get a cookie. Then 3, then they get a cookie. And the more they have to do, usually the harder they start touching your hand, which is what you want. So now you're creating drive, right? Because there's like, so if I do 6 or 7 in a row, my dogs will hit my hand harder and harder and harder because they're like, come on, give me that cookie, lady. But again, so you have to, the problem is most people go from 1 to 6 in a couple days, right? I don't rush these things. I start touches when they're young. And when I feel that each step is super solid, then I move on to the next step. And then that's what, and I do touches like literally every single training session until it's just a really firmly established behavior. Stands they get leash. If working open exercise, just 1 or 2, would you end with stands they get leash each open session? No, because as it is, they figure out if when we start showing them routinely that the stands they get leash is at the end, and then a lot of dogs start to get like jittery, like I want to get out, like let's go, we're done. So I do not do that. I mix it in all the time. I mix it in with utility. I mix it in at the beginning. I'll do it in the middle. I actually almost never do it last in training. Do you have a link for the Get Close games and those pertaining to healing? I do not. However, I saw this question and I made a note that I'll do in the next, well, it might be the beginning of next week. We'll see if I can get it done in the next couple days, but I might not. I'll do a little video on the Get Close game and add it to all the videos on my YouTube channel that are free. Healing is a super complex exercise. So it would be impossible. I have classes at Fenzi on it. It would be impossible to just do little videos on teaching healing. It's way too complicated. Do you always train both sides of your body to keep the dog balanced? I do not. I never do. I wonder if you're thinking that because maybe in some of the videos it looks like I'm doing that because of the way I film it. It like reverses that. I'm wondering if that's why you're asking the question. But no, I don't. I always train them on the left. I don't spend hours and hours healing or doing any activity. So, and I've done rehab on dogs for decades. I've never had a problem keeping them balanced. I just condition them all the time, so it's not a problem. So everything's on the left. My dog must not be mentally cued for signals as she has missed signals for every show. Will you walk through the facing dog to pressing again for me on how to teach it? The facing the dog thing. So, I mean, you can do it any number of ways. You can, as you're walking away from the dog, one thing I do is I say good because that because I think when we walk away from them, they're worried if they're about whether or not they're doing the right thing. Sometimes just saying good helps them. I'll walk away, turn, look at them, and ask them to offer a behavior, and that brings their like attention up, and then I click and reinforce that. Or I'll turn, walk away, turn, look at my dog, and it depends on what your dog knows. My dogs know to offer on silence. So if I stand there and stare at them, eventually they will go, oh, I'm supposed to offer something. And that brings their engagement up. And then I can click and reward that. Or I'll turn and say to them, what can you do? Which is their offering cue. And then they're like, oh, you want me to offer? And then I can click that engagement. So those are, and you're going to have the video, so you, the webinar, so you can go back and review it as well. How do you train dog to keep eyes on you during group sit and down stays? I make my dogs keep their eyes on me during the group sit and down stays? Yeah, it's only a minute, so I do. My dogs understand my cue, pointing at my face and saying up here is a cue that means they're supposed to watch me. So once that is developed, if I do a sit stay, I turn, I remind them to look at me, and then I reward that every like maybe 10 seconds. And then eventually I increase the duration between reinforcers until I get to a minute. Some trial sites have warm-up rings. Do you use them? Yes, sometimes. It depends on the situation. If it's just a one-day show, no, there's no need for me to do it. My dog's trained. I warm them up like I normally do, and we show. If it's a multiple day trial and I need to like maybe just brush up on something, I'll use it. That's it. Only if it's a multi-day trial and there's something I need to brush up on while I do it.
All right. I think that's all of our questions. If I missed you, go ahead and repost your question. Connie did ask for the link to Petra's YouTube channel, so I stuck that there in the chat if anybody wants to grab that. Petra, do you just want to share your website address again so folks know where to go find more stuff?
It's petrasdogresourcecenter.com.
Awesome. And then if you guys want to watch the recording or you want to share the recording, we will email you that link. It's going to be up on the FDSA blog. So FenziDogSportsAcademy.com/blog, BLOG. Once we get it posted, and we should have that posted for you guys sometime this weekend. So it should be out by Monday at the absolute latest. If you want to kind of go back through and pull some more stuff out of that. I know Petra managed to cram a ton of good info there into the hour-long recording. So any other thoughts? Final comment?
Thank you, Melissa, for doing this because I can't do it without her. So, so make sure you guys all thank her too.
Not a problem. Very happy to be here. And with that, guys, we will go ahead and call it. Thank you all for joining us, and maybe we'll see some of you back tomorrow night for some of the paid webinars we have going on. All right, guys.
Bye.